welcome back there. You want us to do the pledge again? Good evening, everyone. At this time, it is our public input on agenda and non-agenda items. I welcome any members of the audience to speak. Okay. Thank you for making it on time, Daniel. It's a pleasure to see you. State assessment presentation. Why did I do it?
Oh, wow.
All right.
Thank you very much.
I can tell people are waiting for Batman and Robin. They gotta wait.
I'll go first, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. So this is our annual kind of go through the results from last year, mainly the three-grade assessment, but the board, I don't know when that was, a little while ago, asked for some, it's cold in here, isn't it? Frosty. Huh? Frosty, yes. Stand right under here.
Good job, Matt.
Children's not working. Well done. Thank you, facilities. The board asked about the goal of chronic absenteeism, and so we'll talk a little bit about that as well tonight. Start with our mission statement like we always do. Tri-City School District will provide a strong educational and social foundation to graduate all our students college and career ready. That's what we start every meeting with, from budget to these meetings, and that's what we're trying to do every single day to make that a reality. And this will be a little bit of how we're doing that and how it's going. Quick reminder. I don't want to keep going back, but 2012, the Common Core assessments started, kind of the new assessments at that time. And since that time, we've had consistent, sustained improvement. From 2012 to 2019, we went up every single year in both ELA and math. There was a pause because of the pandemic. There was no tests in 2019-20, and there were no real official results in 2021. There was a test given, but it was optional, and it wasn't not a lot of students tried it. So then results from the 21-22 was a reset and a new baseline, and that's where we kind of have started re-looking at what the trends look like. I do want to say we understand state assessments aren't the only and really not even the most important measure of our success of our students. We have what's called a multiple measure index in all of our schools, where administrators and faculty and staff are looking at a wide range of data sets for every single student. I mean, I just had data meetings with all the principals the last couple of weeks, and it's super impressive to hear them talk about the data analysis that's going on, right down to the classroom and student level for every single kid in this district. Again, there's a MMI, the multiple measure index sheet, and a load of data for that kid. State assessments is one of those pieces of data, but all the local assessments, the classroom things, and there's a whole profile that each student gets. So while we talk about the state assessments, I don't know what just popped up there, but hopefully everything's okay. While we talk about state assessments, because they're a public also measurement that we have to compare ourselves to others. Thank you for that. Who did that, Teresa? Well done, Teresa. Did you do something about the cold or no?
I'm sorry, I can't.
But they're also a great measure of our students' and district's growth over the years. So we still do want to look at it each year, but again, we understand that it's just one of many ways that we measure our students' success. Remember during the budget season, talk about all the things that we're proud of. From graduation rate to our masterminds team winning the league and dominating some teams, to our Outs in the Mind team at School 18 going to nationals, to our art and music and all those great things. But tonight we'll talk about the New York State assessment. So I do want to start with the state results themselves. Quick graph. The left is the math and the right is the ELA. This is statewide now. And the only reason I put that up there, and this is actually earlier than it's been the last couple of years, so the state hasn't broken down like they sometimes do of high needs districts where we can really make our comparison against districts that are like ours. So all we really have at this point in the year are the total state numbers. But it is really been helpful to us to know so we can compare to something. So the year to year on the state was not great. You see the math was flat. They were 52% proficient last year across the state, and still 52%. Pandemic, pre-pandemic, that first left, far left bar, 46.7. So since the pandemic, they're 5.3% up over those 3 years since the pandemic. In ELA, a little bit worse. They've gone down 2% year over year, and then the pre-pandemic was really flat. I mean, you look at those ELA scores, pretty flat from 45.4 the last year before the pandemic, now at 46, so less than 1% increase in math and ELA. And again, I show that, and I'll go back to it in a minute as soon as I show ours, just so we have something to compare to. Of course, we're always comparing to ourselves, but we also want to have some kind of baseline that we're looking at. So then our results with the same kind of chart. So our math scores last year were fantastic. You'll see them in a bunch of different slides here, and then even in the highlight section. Our math scores really, really jumped. So from year over year, they went up almost 9%. How are we doing? Up almost 9%. And then if you look pre-pandemic, we're at 27.3. And so since the pandemic, almost 17% increase. So remember, here the state was pretty flat year over year, and the state is 52%. For us to be at 44%, really, really great results in math. That's a nice jump, almost 9% district-wide. We went down in ELA the same amount as the state did. It actually was 1.95, but then when we rounded it was 2, so I was a little disappointed in that one. That's just my math thing. But so we took a hit there, which, you know, the principals, Dr. Watson, already looking at that, already trying to see what happened. We've got a nice jump from 22 to 23. You can see it there, almost 7%. And so, you know, it's just a little tiny bounce backwards. And to see that the state also did that makes it a little more palatable, but certainly something we've already started studying through the summer and into the school year. I think it's worth pointing out, I talked about the principals meetings and all the data they looked at. It's really great. They have data teams, and the teachers themselves are doing it as part of those data teams. They can look at the state standards and see by classroom, by teacher, by grade level, which standards on those tests our kids did better than the region and better than the state, which standards that we were lacking on it, and, you know, again, broken down by student themselves, by teacher, by grade level, by school. And so it really helps target what improvements need to be made and where. So again, seeing that decline there, I'm super confident as I stand before you that both of those things will be improving next year. We'll continue to improve in math, and that ELA will bounce right back up. So this is a new table just because the years are getting to be too many. So remember, these first three, the bottom three used to be all of those years in there. It started at, again, 2012, 2013. It was 12%, it went up to like 14 and then 18. And so that's the sustained continual improvement over those years from 2012 up to 2019. That's math, and ELA will be next. Then we had the break of the 2 years for COVID, and so now we're restarting. And so I thought it'd be better to display it that way rather than put all of those years in from the bottom. But we do have those on previous presentations. If anybody wanted to see them, I certainly talk to the board. If you want to see those again, I can get those out from last year's presentation. But really now we're focused on those top three lines. So coming back from the pandemic, that new baseline that I talked about in the first slide. We started with 24, jumped to 35%, and then jumped again to 44%. So that's 2 really solid years of increases in our math. Part of that is we started the new math program 4 years ago. So it takes a little while for teachers to get used to it. It takes a little while for kids to start getting used to it, and we're starting to see the results of that now, and really, really proud of the math results district-wide. Again, 44% proficient, just below the statewide proficiency number. And there's the ELA, same thing, those bottom 3 were those sustained, consistent years of progress from 11.4 way back in 2012 when the exam started, all the way up to just under 29%, a break, and now the top 3 lines are the new results. 30 jumped up to 37, and a little bounce back that I just talked about in the last slide that we will correct this year. Tom hated that slide. He just told me. So that is the line graph version of the old one that had all the numbers in it. Just to kind of show that even though sometimes there are bounces up and down, almost like the stock market, right? So if the big purple one in the middle is the district, right? And then each line is a different school there. The real point of that, and you don't have to look at all the numbers. Again, the numbers are just the year over year. The ones that I took out here that I was just talking about, from 12.2 to 27.3. There's a 12.2 to 27.3. So those are the year over year changes in the proficiency. And so even though there is some bouncing up and down, you can, the whole point of this graph and the ELA one next is to show that the trend is always rising up to the right. And getting better as the years go on. Really, that's really the point of that. Tom, I'll make sure to take that out for you. There's a much better one, the bar graph. He's a big bar graph guy. So we'll talk a little bit about this one and the next one. This is math and then ELA. So this is broken down by our schools that take the 3 through 8 assessments. So it's the 5 elementary schools and TMS. You can see them there, I'll read them to you. A couple of highlights there. School 16, just under 66% proficient. It's incredible, amazing. I just showed you way back here. The state results is 52%. 52% on the state level. And they're at 65%. So not only higher than the state proficiency, but much higher. So really great job, School 16. All of the principals did a great job. They're going to give their own presentation, so they'll delve into the data a little bit more than I'm going to. But I'm just going to point out a few things here. And School 16 certainly wanted to point out. Some double-digit increases. The middle school, School 2 went from 19 up to 38%, doubled, not only a 19% increase, but doubled their proficiency percentage, way up to 38. That's really great. That's the highest that they've ever had, so that's good news there. And then, 14 and 18 in the mid to high 40s there. Really, really good stuff. You'll see Carroll Hill was the only school that went up in both ELA and math. You'll see on the next slide they also increased. So there was the other double-digit one. They went from 19.6 to 33.1. Real nice increase in math at Carroll Hill. And TMS, almost an 8% increase. So our math performances were really, really good. And again, credit to all the teachers and administrators that worked so hard preparing the students for that. ELA, again, that's the one district-wide that we went down to. It was consistent really across all the schools. Carroll Hill was the only one that increased in ELA from 22 up to 28, 96% increase. Others were, really, there were some bounces down. I met with Ms. Klobuchar here. She was obviously disappointed in that. But sometimes, and I just showed you, they went up in math 19%, so they're doing great work there. And it's a one week out of the year test. But you see from 2 years ago, they were at 13%, jumped all the way to 27, and then, you know, again, sometimes that happens, and then sort of bounce back a little bit. I expect next year to be right back up into that high 20s, low 30s range. But, you know, the other ones are really flat. I mean, school 16 goes down a little bit, but they're still at 54%. School 18 goes down a little bit, but still at 44. And TMS down a little bit, but still at 36. So they're really kind of flat, except for the couple that I put out there. And parallel up in both. This is district goal number 1. So all of that is our overall proficiency rates, district-wide and by building, ELA and math. But this is our district goal number 1 that we vote on every year. I want to talk a little bit about it because we do talk about, you know, whether we're changing those goals and what should we do. The number of students overall and for every subgroup measured for accountability will increase as follows. 20% of our students who are at 1 will improve to 2, 3, and 4, and 20% of level 2 will improve to 3 and 4. I can remember, and I don't know, just Ann and Tom that were here when we made that goal?
No, I was here.
When we had the retreat with Jim Baldwin and all of that. But it
No,
doesn't matter.
no, it was us.
It doesn't matter. That was a while ago.
Yeah, this is-
I can remember when we decided on this goal, and again, going back to my math background, it was about making sure that we were trying to make sure every kid improved, right? And so it's easy to have an overall goal of, you know, just doing better and being better, which we all want to do. We all believe in continuous improvement. But this was a way to say, okay, even the kids that are way down here, struggling, at risk, getting 1s, we're going to move them to the right. The kids that are already here, we're going to move them to the right. The kids that are already performing well, we're still going to move them to the right. That's what this was about. And I can remember telling you then, the board members that were here, I even broke down the numbers. If we can have 20%, it was this many kids, and then those kids will then be 2s, and then 20% more. And it's really happened over the last 10, 11 years, right? That's what this, even though Tom hates it, that's what that is, right? That's improving the 1s to 2s, the 2s to 3s and 4s, the 3s to 4s, and so on. So taking every single kid, and that's what those data meetings are, right? What I was telling you before with the multiple measure index, each kid having their own data profile, and what does that kid need? What are his strengths or her strengths and weaknesses? What standards on those state assessments have they done well on? What do they need more help on and more targeted improvement on? And taking those kids and making sure everybody's growing. Even if you're growing from a low 1 to a high 1, right? And that's what Dr. Watson might talk about that a little bit tonight, because that's one of her things now. She gets so frustrated when the scores come out and they compare, you know, the Troy kids to the Niskayuna kids, and our kids are starting further to the left than those other kids, but they're growing so much more, right? And so the state does not really measure growth, but this goal is one way we can do it. So proud to say that we did it, and I know that there was some talk about moving that up from 20%, and I was looking at the last year's of the year before, and I said, hey, let's try to keep it. But maybe next year when we have that conversation, I think Tom, you were the one who said it, maybe it is time. And you can see the percentages there. So those are the level 1s from 2 years ago. The top one was 366 level 1s. Almost 100 of them improved. That's 27 of the level 1s now are 2s, 3s, and 4s. 31% of last year's 2s and ELAs are now 3s and 4s. And then the bottom is the math. 34% of the 1s from 2 years ago are now 2s, 3s, or 4s. And 36% of the 2s from 2 years ago are now 3s and 4s. So again, moving kids to the right of that spectrum, and really proud of that. And then I mentioned at the beginning, the board mentioned absentees. It was one of the Friday reports, I think. We'll go back and forth. Maybe it was here. But our district goal number 4 is we want to make sure our chronically absent students defined by New York State will decrease by 2 percentage points. And our chronic absence percentages are still too high, and we're working on that. And thank you to the board for allowing us to have all those interventions that we have, including now an attendance liaison in every building that's focusing directly on this goal. The vans that are in the buildings that help us, with transportation issues that we're facing. And so we're doing a lot to try to improve this attendance. And there's 2 ways to measure it. So I've gotten both of them here for you today in this presentation, because the chronically absentee list is, the definition is any kid who's missed 10% of school. So there's 180 days of school, so it's really 18 days. If a kid who misses 18 days of school, they count, according to the state, as a chronically absent student. So, 10 months out of the year, 18 days, that's 2 a month. A kid misses 2 days a month. It doesn't seem like a lot when you're talking about it, but 2 days a month takes you to chronically absent. So that's why our percentages are so high. I'm not making an excuse for it. We're working on it, and it's something we got to deal with. And we're getting better in some places, but we did not hit it in the district. So I gave you the last 3 years because we hadn't looked at this in a board presentation yet. So the bottom is the district as a whole is 42.5 in 21-22. Did decrease to 39% in 22-23, but it decreased just a little bit, 0.5%. Not even from 22-23 to 23-24. So still work to do. Some of the buildings really did a great job. School 18 went down to from 36 down to 27. School 2, they look at their number 2 years ago, 71%. Ms. Clopo really focused in on that over the last 2 years. She's got a lot of incentive programs. All the schools, we had a district-wide attendance committee for a while, but now it's broken down by schools. So each school has some attendance type committee where they're trying to get students here. But Ms. Clopo and Mr. Meadows down from 71 to 58 down to 48. So real great improvement there. School 16 jumped up a little bit, talking to Dr. Ford, and I agree with him. Remember, they were at School 12 all last year, so a little bit different when you're not going to your neighborhood school. You're going to, when you see 18 from 21-22 to 22-23 jumps up a little bit, same reason. So when you're driving or getting transportation across town to a different school, it makes it a little bit harder. But again, we're working hard to try to remove all the obstacles that kids and families face, but that's our chronic absentee number. And that also included the daily attendance rate. So now the daily attendance rate is what percentage of kids are there on a particular day, right? So you could have a 95% daily attendance rate, and depending on if those 10% are the same ones that are absent every day, you might have 10% chronically absent. But you also could still have 40% chronically absent if it's a different, again, only 2 days a month, and you count as chronically absent. So depending on who those kids are on a daily rate. But it's good to look at both things. So that was last year's daily rate. Again, the board discussion, we usually get those monthly reports, right? And so we're going to get those again. It's going to be, and I think I wrote it in our Friday report, we used to give you just a snapshot. We picked one day at random, which I'm not sure how that started, but that didn't make any sense. So we're not going to do that. But I'm going to give you this. So at the end of every month, so we finish September, a monthly basis. So we finish September on Monday. So it usually takes a week or two to process this and get all everything updated. But probably the Friday report or the Friday report after, maybe a week or two into the following month, I'll give you each school and the district's daily attendance rate for that month. All right. And if there are questions on those, we can talk.
In those figures, will the pre-K, the school that has pre-Ks, will we get?
I'll probably take the pre-Ks out.
Okay.
Pre-Ks out.
How about your school?
What's that?
How about TCS?
I can put TCS in if you want TCS. Yeah, they can be run separately. For this, I think they're in there for the yearly one. For the monthly one, I can break it out. So all hover around 90. District 88.76. They're a couple over 90. School 18 in the middle school, but they're all in that 88, 89 range. when I was a high school principal, and I'm going back all those years, we used to report this to the board all the time, and I remember, we were looking at it so carefully that if there was a snow delay or half days, I used to give the data with those and without those because, on a 2-hour snow delay, you get 40% of things sometimes. And so I used to run the month with and without those kinds of days just so we have a real, more accurate kind of look at it. But again, thank you for the board for reminding me, and so that's our attendance data from last year and from the chronically absenteeism in the last 3 years. I think I already said all these, but just to have them on one page, this will be up on the website, so I just wanted to say, have it all there. But our proficiency rates above the pre-pandemic rates for both ELA and math, and better increases than the state level, which we're proud of. 5 of our 6 schools had their highest recorded math proficiency rate. 3 out of our 6 had double-digit math rate increases. School 2 is the highest. Harold Hill increased in both ELA and math. 16 outperforming the state, and really by far, in both ELA and math. And then the last one I didn't say, thank you, Mr. Meadows and Ms. Clopo, School 2 no longer a receivership school, so you won't see any of those visits and any of that in the, definitely worth the plug there, in the Friday report. So finally out of receivership, and we worked really, really hard over the last 10 years, the staff there. And, Dr. Watson and I went over and celebrated with them end of last year when it became official. So congratulations to them. So much to be proud of. Certainly still work to do, but we will keep our momentum and continue to move the district forward. You're going to jump through there?
I don't know about that, man.
I'm going to let you see it.
Does anybody have any questions for John before this?
Yes, sir.
Do we have any data on the proficiency rates, and I know they go to 8th grade, but like how they impacts our high school graduation?
It's a great question, Matt. It's really, people that talk against the 3 through 8 assessments and the importance they get in the news and things, talk about that all the time. Really, our Regents results, and Dr. Watson and I were just talking about it, I think last week or early this week, our Regents results are much better. When you talk about proficiency rates and you talk about bragging that we're 44%, it seems weird because that means half the kids did not perform proficient. But it's the way the exams are set up, and it's the way the scale is made. The Regents exams are still in that 100 base percent, and so I'm not sure there's a predictor on it because our graduation rates, I didn't put a graduation rate slide in there, but our graduation rates, as you know, hovered in the mid to high 80s, even hit 90 a couple of years ago. And so we're really proud of it. I don't think there's really, I could have Tara keep running, he'd probably be interested in doing that. I'm not sure there's really any correlation between the two. What's supposed to be is if you're getting a 3 or 4 on those 3 through 8 assessments, you're on track for graduation. And 2s, you're probably there, and 1s, you're not. But I mean, our percentage of 1s, even though it's gone down, we've done good work, doesn't really correlate to our non-grad rates because it's so much, our non-grad rates are so much better than those. I don't know, Dr. Watson, you want to?
Yeah, I would just add, that's the trend everywhere, is that the kids tend to do better once they get to the high school. So there are multiple opportunities. There's only one ELA Regents exam at the high school, it's grade 11. And students can begin taking it, honestly, some kids take it in 10th grade. I mean, our kids take it in 11th grade, they can take it in January, they can take it in June, they can take it in August, they can take it again the following year in January, in June, in August. And our teachers are really working hard. I mean, I don't know, at opening day I was doing a shout out to Beth Wilson, who had English language learners who were still learning the English language, and she was trying to help, and I think she got them all through. And so I mean, it's a different game. It's not like You look at how you do on 3 through 8, and then you can say, oh, that's how we'll do. Everyone tends to do much better on the high school, which is why people say, some people say, not Troy, why are we doing this? It's not even aligned with what we're doing at the high school. And if kids can get a 2 and still pass the English Regents, is there something wrong with 3 through 8? So, you know, it gets confusing, but the high school is a little bit of a different situation. So,
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
John, so you a lot of numbers in here, which is great. You put in highlights. What are the areas of improvement that you guys are focusing on? And how do we tie it to this to make sure that where we're improving, this is gonna help that?
Yeah.
Right, so instead of highlights, is there like, not to call it lowlights, but
Yeah.
needs for improvement, where are we focusing those and how does it relate to this?
In
What's
a
that in
single,
between?
yeah, it's a great question, and hopefully I'll speak to some of that through how we're gonna continue to move forward. But in a single sentence, the work is that we still have far too many students not reading, writing, and doing math on grade level. And you have to remember, with a proficiency-based test, it doesn't take into account where anyone is starting. So as Mr. Carmelo mentioned, when the state used to recognize growth, and the state is actually considering adding growth back in again, so we may see it in the next year. I mean, if we still have the test and all of that, but when we used to get a growth score from the state, so it would compare our students to other students of a similar performance the previous year, a similar background, like maybe if they're an English language learner, if they're a student with disability, where they performed, they took all that, so you were kind of comparing very similar students, and then teachers would get a growth score in that, and it was out of 20. And many of our teachers in our schools were getting 18, 19, 20. Our kids are growing. When you're looking at a growth measure, which is why it's so helpful to look at the 1s to 2s, the 2s to 3s, because you could move from 1 to the highest 2, which is amazing growth. Any teacher that works with kids and gets them from a 1 to a high 2 is, I mean, we should be so grateful to have that,
Yeah.
but you're not proficient. So it doesn't recognize that. So a proficiency assessment, let's assume it was a marathon, and we're all running a marathon, but Josh is starting on mile 7. And then we're gonna say, all right, let's all compare our time, when did we finish that race? It's really, you have to, you know, it's not an excuse, and we know, we believe our mission, obviously, our theory of action is that we believe all of our kids can achieve at high levels, and we have to monitor what they're doing, we have to track their data, which is what Mr. Carmelo was talking about with all the leaders, and I see our curriculum leader for ELA in the audience, and everybody working so hard, but when the data shows if the student is not growing, that's when we have to get in and say, what are we gonna do differently as the adults? We don't say, oh, well, you started here. No, you have to be showing growth, and we have a lot of tools available to us that help us determine if kids are making gains or not. So
would you say that the multiple measurement assessment that goes on at the school level is what the teachers are using?
Yeah.
If you're bringing those kids along based on that,
yes.
these numbers should naturally increase.
So that's what I was going to answer. Those data meetings I had with all the principals, we're talking about, I mean, for the board, I have the overall district and overall schools, but as I said, they're breaking it down by teacher, by student, by grade level, and all of the standards that need, Dr. Goss just pointed out.
So those individual students are getting
the curriculum leaders are
support.
meeting with those teachers, the instructional coaches are meeting with those teachers, with your list of kids. And so, another thing we talked about with the principals is, each teacher has a list of kids that are in front of them right now this year, but they also have to look at who was in front of them last year, right? So how did those kids do last year that were in front of you? What standards did they do well on? What standards did they not do well on? What could you have done differently in your teaching, right? So all of that, they're looking at every single thing like that all summer long and into the school year. And then, now the kids that are in front of you right now, look at them as a student. What did they do last year? What are their strengths and weaknesses? And how can you target the instruction and the interventions better for those kids? So that, I mean, there's no district-wide where I can say, here are the lowlights, here are the things we're working on. Each principal, each instructional coach, each curriculum leader knows which areas the grade levels and the teachers are working on, and they're doing it at that level.
Okay.
You have other questions?
Well, I guess I would just say from a specific goal standpoint, is that the specific goals for improvement at those individual levels rely on the principals and the folks in each school?
Yeah, it relies on the whole team, so there's a.
So like Dr. Ford or Mr. Monk here would have different goals in their own
Yes.
district to bring those students along?
Yes,
Okay.
they would.
Yeah,
Got
and
it.
then they'll all be based off the district goals that we approve every year.
Got
Right? Again, the 1s, the 2s, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, the graduation rate for Mr.
And those
Murray.
district goals tie to those goals?
Those all tied to the.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yep, got it. Thank
So
you.
when we think about the reform agenda in Troy, a lot of what's in the presentation this evening is going to be very similar to things that you've already heard. And why would that be? Because the strategies we're using are working. And we know we don't have 100% of our students proficient yet, but we do know that students are growing immensely. And so we want to continue to do some of the great work that's happening. I would say, I was chatting with some of the leaders about the fact that some of this is going to be, you know, a continuation of strategies, and I thought that if I could just say the 3 things that I think are helping our students to grow the most, I would have to say it is class size. I think is really, really helpful. I think it's the coaching and the support from our curriculum leaders. We have so much embedded support in the classroom. It's not like years ago where you would go to a workshop down the street. The experts are pushing in and working with kids, and you're watching. It's very hands-on, it's very sustainable, and it changes practice. And then the third thing I would say is access to really high-quality PD and materials, which we can feel very proud in Troy about the support and the access to high-quality, you know, people, resources, materials that we give to our teachers. So I think we can all feel proud about that. So the 3 DSIP, so District Comprehensive Improvement Plan, which we write every year, a DSIP, you read that, it was a lengthy document, but it boils down to 3 priority areas: meeting the social emotional, you know, health needs of students and families, and also instruction. So I can't see this, and I'm not really sure where's a good place to stand. They're written as priorities. So we prioritize meeting the social, emotional, developmental needs. We prioritize instruction, intervention, and support. And then we prioritize improving equity and opportunity and outcomes. So social, emotional needs, instruction, that middle piece, and equity. And as we've noted before, not just in the district goals, but in these priorities, equity is an important piece of all of the priorities. So let's dig into each of these on its own. So the first priority, social emotional health, we have a lot of strategies. So we have the implementation of the new Stronger Connections grant program. So that is going to allow us to provide mentors to about 1/3 of our student population. So lots of different adults in lots of different roles who will be, you know, helping to meet with our children, monitoring their report card progress, working as a liaison between school and home, and really just helping to remove any barriers that a student is experiencing, personal, school-related, making sure they have access to the right resources and people, and helping to, you know, make it so that they can focus more on learning. So that's an exciting grant, which is new. And then the continuation of our student mental health grant, which expands access for families. We're doing a lot of new programs with that as well. I know that hospice has like wave riders for people experiencing grief. And with this grant, we're able to do some small group for any of our students who have been a victim of a crime or witnessed a crime or been affected in any way. And I think that has the potential to really, really help our kids. And it also increases access to families to a wealth of mental health supports. We have our staff developers. So we have Dr. Pepper with 1 P, that's not a typo. She is a behavioral specialist and she's amazing. She's got over 30 years of experience in the field. She pushes in and she does a lot of help with behavioral intervention, and I believe she's worked in every one of our schools through Donna Fitz's office. And then we also have Rebecca McGinn, who helps with trauma-sensitive practices, and she really works with individual schools and individual teacher teams in any way that they feel they need her. So a lot of our support, it's not canned programs. It's sitting down with the second grade team at School 18 and saying, what are the kinds of things that you're seeing? How can I help you? What can we do together? Doing observation in the room. Okay, here's what I saw. Here's what I would suggest. So it's a lot of embedded, hands-on work. Let's see what else we have. Oh, Code of Conduct Committee. So we have a comprehensive review of the Code of Conduct every other year. We just did that, and I see some of my friends in the audience who are on that committee with me. So this year, in the off year, when we're not reading every single word of the code to make sure that everything's, you know, how we want it, we do DFS meetings. So those are data feedback strategy meetings. So we'll actually look at the board goal related to reducing the discipline infractions and increasing positive behaviors. So we will look at, and actually this is a screenshot of the September PBIS Students of the Month at the middle school. So I thought that was kind of a fun one to put there. You know, we believe that the best behavior grows from strong, positive, trusting relationships between the people who work here and the students who go here. So there's a big push for that. But we will look at referral data, suspension data, where are the incidents happening, when are they happening, what resource do we have? So during the off year when we're not reading every single word of the code, we're having those meetings. And then the team sort of shares out, well, here's what we've done at the high school, or here's what we did, you know, at school 2 or 16, and it's really, really helpful. It's a good brainstorming. And then also I left in our canine, our therapy dogs. I wanted to make sure everybody on the board knows that we do have therapy dogs. We haven't seen Sammy in a while.
Sammy's not coming.
Sammy, we are going to have an episode with Sammy. But Gus, the guy in the lower left there, we're expanding our use of the therapy dogs to include pre-K this year. So Ms. Curry's really excited about that. We have some students that the therapy dogs are really going to be helpful to them. And it's very motivating. Right, Mr. Meadows? Dora?
Good answer.
Oh, gosh. All right, moving right along. Any questions on the social emotional piece? Yes, Mr.
I'm
Miller.
just curious about the therapy dogs. I think that's awesome when the kids in the family
Yeah.
probably love it. How does that work? Are they like outside handlers that bring their dogs in?
So Principal Clopo at school 2, Dora is her dog. So he lives with the Clopos and she brings him to work every day. She didn't bring him yesterday because we had some interviews and she wasn't sure. Not everybody's a dog person. And he has his dog bed is in the main office, but he's used as a reward. He's used in small group counseling sessions. Kids will work hard to have time with Dora. I don't know, Mr. Meadows, if you...
No, that's pretty good. The kids actually love it. You know, in the morning, she usually does a lap around the building. So kindergarten classes, building, the kids come down, lunchtime, you know, she's in the small group, like you said. So all over, nice mix.
Yeah.
Is she actually trained as a service dog?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
They all are. Well, Sammy might not be, but...
Sammy's my therapy dog.
They're ours, everybody in the district office.
Jeez, about that Sammy.
Sammy's a work in progress. All right, moving on to instruction. So some of the strategies, I'm actually gonna just use this, it's easier for me
You
than.
can stand in front of me, you're not bothered.
No, it's
Easier
such
for
a, it's
you.
like a weird, you don't know to stand over there, you have your back to people. I'm gonna come back to the first bullet. So I'm really, really excited. Historically, when we do a deep dive into our data, I'm gonna be honest, some of us are using a large yellow legal pad and we're drawing things, and we are diving into the use of artificial intelligence to really help us to better identify students' needs, predict things, provide personalized learning. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that because that one is new. I tried to put the newer things at the top. Our data liaisons are continuing to lead the data meetings by teams. They've been trained, and in every school, they're running the same reports for the leaders and making sure that that work is moving along. The instructional coaches, they're also doing the embedded coaching cycles. They're running the data meetings. Again, it's a very responsive practice. It's not, I come in and I do what I do in every second grade. It's what do I do based on the needs of your kids right now? How are we gonna work together to help affect improvements in instruction? Extensive PD. I could do 10 slides on the professional development that this district offers to teachers, staff members, leaders, everyone. And I'm not just talking about going to, there's a couple conferences on the agenda tonight. I'm talking about book studies. I'm talking about serving on committees at the state ed level, going to do scouting missions to other districts, seeing promising practices all over the state. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. National conferences, state conferences, local conferences, really partnering across districts, and then working through our BOCEs. I mean, there's just so much professional development, and the two that are listed under there, Mossflower and Eureka Math Squared, those are really, I would say, the most impactful PD that we've offered teachers when it comes to reading and math. It really has been about showing teachers models of expert practice, and our teachers just soak it up, and they have internalized those practices, and we're growing those practices, and the goal would be to be able to lead this work on our own through our coaches, who have come a long way. I mean, I think about the last 5 years, all the work and time and support that we've invested in our coaches, and they are just top notch, top notch. So the PD can't be understated. Expansion of libraries, you can see a couple kids there. The little guy on the top, I don't know if you can see, but there's a banner that says grand opening. That was in your building, Ms. DiNardo, where they did a ribbon cutting because they added, like, I don't know, 1,000 new books to the library, and the kids were so fired up. They cut the ribbon and then they all went book shopping. And it's just a way to make sure that there's high engagement and excitement and motivation for reading. It's not a basal approach, like turn to page 19 and we're all going to read about dolphins. It's, you know, finding books that are at your level, that you know, you can read independently and that teachers can use to work with you. So the book investment has been amazing. And then our updated curriculum review and alignment. So those of you who've been around a while, I don't know if you can see this. I tried to highlight it yellow and purple and gold. It didn't really work, but we have a 4-year curriculum mapping cycle, which is brand new in 2014 is when we first started it. So up to that point, some of the projects were sort of haphazard or depending on the curriculum leader, but we wanted to systematize that. So we implemented this 4-year cycle, and you can see that every single year, thankfully to the board and to the cabinet and everyone that supports this in the budget, because it is not cheap, we are able to hire teams of teachers to map our curriculum, which is really the most important thing we can do to make sure that we have a process where we're reviewing the standards at the time, where we're reviewing our units of study, we're making sure it's aligned to the standards, it's rigorous, that kids will be ready for whatever the assessment is at the end of that year. So we have this cycle, and you can see there's one core area each year. So it's English, and then that's paired with some smaller areas, foreign language and library, social studies, art and music, science, PE and health, and so on. And so then when those 4 years are up, it starts over again. And when those 4 years were up, it started over again. So right now, we're in our 11th year. So at the end of next year, we will have had 3 full cycles of curriculum review of everything that we are teaching in Troy, which is really a really wonderful thing to be able to say. Not everybody has such extensive, you know, curriculum review and alignment. So we have our own cycle, but then sometimes, and Mr. Monk knows this more than anybody, because it seems at the high school things are constantly changing. So the standards are changing, the assessments are changing, and sometimes it's hard to keep track of it because it's a lot. And I'm not going to read all of this, but you can see the different regions exams. Now we're aligning to the Next Gen Learning Standards for math and ELA and the New York State P12 Science Learning Standards. So we had new science tests at 5th and 8th grade, new algebra. Next year we have geometry, earth and space sciences are new, and then we're going back to biology. It might not be exactly biology like some of us did in the 80s, but it's going back to biology. and then Algebra 2, Chem, Physics, and ELA in 25-26. So sometimes our cycle lines up perfectly, other times it doesn't. So there are times where it might not be the year for science, but if there's a new chemistry regents, we have to pay a team of teachers to work really hard to make sure what we're teaching, that our units of study are aligned with the tests that the kids are going to face at the end of that course. So there's a lot of moving parts, and we have 13 curriculum leaders. Erin O'Malley's one of them, sitting over there for ELA. But we have a teacher on special assignment who leads that work for their department, and they also work together, and they work with the instructional coaches. So there's a lot of collaboration. And then finally, on instruction, we are really leaning into AI and augmented reality and some of this stuff. We haven't really done too much of it yet. These are a couple pictures from, I believe this is School 18, Ms. Donvito McPhee. It was the International Dot Day, which is a sort of a STEAM day for creativity. And if you look carefully, not the one in the upper left, that's something a little bit different, but if you see those kids in the bottom, they're like drawing circles and they're coloring them in with markers. And then they're using augmented reality to create 3D images using Quiver on the iPads. So they are really just, you know, we're going into some of the virtual reality stuff, augmented reality, and with AI, I just wanted to say, we're using that not just for some of our instructional stuff, but also for our robust assessment program. When we talk about the multiple measures that we have, a lot of different measures we can tell you for math and for reading, and we collect a lot of pieces of information on every single student. Some of the AI tools, we're using iReady now, which is an adaptive tool, which means that if Mr. Chapone and I are both taking a test in our grade level, and you're answering the questions and you're getting them all right, your questions are getting harder. I'm answering them and I'm not doing so well. Mine are gonna get a little bit easier. So it's, the AI is trying to figure out the just right spot for you. So what is it that you, normally it might be one test for everybody. Now it's adaptive and it's helping us to really pinpoint what students know and are able to do, and there's an entire portfolio of reports for teachers. Next steps for instruction for Mr. Chapone, next steps for instruction for me. And then there's personalized learning that I can do at home, and I can practice the things that I'm not so great at. You can excel because you're gifted, and you're, you know, you can just carry on. You can do things in the next grade level or the grade level above that. So it's.
I wish you did the example the other way. It would have been funnier for me.
So
That's pretty cool.
yeah, I think it's going to really help us, and they have some really neat tools that the principals were actually learning about them more on Monday. Our proficiency predictor tools and some of the other tools that are available. I would say we don't struggle because we have such a robust and awesome assessment system in Troy. We don't struggle to identify who's at risk and who might not make it. I think we all could tell you that, you know, pretty soon. But these tools may help us to refine our instructional practices to really get the most bang for our buck with our students. What is this? Oh, equity. So then our final priority is equity. We don't have the equity liaison positions anymore, but the equity work, I'm happy to report, is really continuing in full force. And you can see some of the things that will be continuing. The college caravans, I think these were 3 of these photos. The top 2 in the bottom right were done at the college caravan that we just had for the seniors, Mr. Monk. And there were over 40 colleges there, so everybody was able to meet with an admissions counselor and understand, like, what do I need to get in? What do I, you know, what are you looking for? How can I learn more about this? So that's really great. We have a ton of workforce readiness and career experiences that all will be continuing. And I suspect that when if you're not on the equity committee, if you are on the equity committee, you'll hear the principals speak there. But if you're not, I suspect when they are doing their presentations to you, they will touch on this work that is still continuing. The equity improvement cycles, I'll finish with those. Restorative practices training, so we are happy to report, again, this is another strategy that's continuing. Lori DiCarlo is an incredible resource who really helps with restorative practices in schools. She's worked with all of our schools, and this year she's focusing on School 16, School 18, and Troy High School. And after this, every one of our schools will be fully trained in the restorative practices work, so that's exciting. We're also partnering with Karen Mapp, who is just like the national guru on engaging families as partners. There's a team from School 14, I don't think School 14's here tonight, that's going to be doing some work through Harvard with her, which is exciting. Again, Mr. Carmelo mentioned the attendance specialist, home visits, really engaging families as partners, making sure that they have equitable access to whatever they need so their students can be successful. And then our survey administration, we were getting a lot of feedback from families that the surveys were, people were getting survey fatigue because it was 3 times a year, it was so many questions. So we're actually going to try just giving it one time this year in the winter. And then we're going to try to do more data cafes and sessions with families going deeper and unpacking. Okay, so 40% said this. Tell us more, give us more information about that. So we want to try and see, because we had one administration where we had very little participation, and it was like, they said, we already did it. Why are you keep asking us the same questions? So we think if we isolate it to just one and ask people to be all in, then maybe they will, give us more information quantitatively and also qualitatively. And then finally, these are the equity improvement cycles. Each of the principals have handed these in for this year. And you can see they span a lot of different areas: discipline, academics, reading comprehension. High school is continuing with their goal of enrolling racially diverse students in honors and college level courses. And then at the district office, really continuing to try to recruit and retain a more diverse workforce with a real focus on the retention piece. We talked about this a lot in cabinet, making sure that we are, supporting and retaining the great people that we have working in the district. So that's a little snapshot of the work that will continue. It's certainly not everything, but when you think about the main work of the district, it's around social, emotional, developmental health of our students and families, instruction, our core enterprise is always teaching and learning, and equity. And so we're hoping, and we feel confident that this plan will continue to move our kids wherever they are along that continuum, continue to move them toward proficiency. So, any questions on that? No? It's getting late.
Not even Josh, you don't have a question?
Thank you, Dr. Russell.
Thank you.
Thank you on there.
There you go.
Thank you, board members, for your support.
There you go. I think no more weekend as well. There you go.
Sorry, I tried to keep it to 10.
Okay. Motion on the floor for approval of minutes September 18th, 2024, and September 23rd, 2024.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion on the floor to amend the agenda to add under superintendent recommendation, human resources staff matter, and specifically, to amend agenda specifically staff matters unclassified. A1, to add new subparagraph C, to accept the resignation of Melanie Schleicher dated October 1st, 2024, to be effective September 30th, 2024. So motion's on the floor to amend the agenda.
So that's 1A on here?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Yeah. A1C. We're gonna add it as
Gotcha.
A1C.
I think.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Superintendent recommendation, human resources staff matter unclassified and classified, as amended. Under unclassified, motion on the floor for consent agenda items 1 through 13.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Under unclassified, motion on the floor for consent agenda items 1 through 9.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Superintendent recommendations, programs, motion on the floor for consent agenda items 1 through 7.
Second.
People are going to be traveling. Discussion. Well-
What's the case conference?
What's the
That
case
one,
conference?
it's a special ed conference that Ms. Fitzgerald requested to attend as part of her role as the PPS director. Get more information
Paid for out of the superintendent.
at her grant.
She's running the conference.
Any question, any more discussion? Did I get a second on that?
I agree with that. Sorry.
All those in favor? Opposed? Superintendent recommendation, business finance, motion on the floor for consent agenda items 1 as listed.
Second.
Now, under discussion, should we discuss, this is just being presented to us today, we're not,
For the seeker, this
for
is
the seeker,
and the
right?
lead agency, right?
Correct. This is slightly different than I'd say most projects. This is just referring to the tech wing.
Okay,
If you may recall, the SED came back and said they want a different proposition.
Yeah.
Due to the addition of, in the south lot, usually we have what are called type 2 actions, which are pretty much, you're not expanding the footprint. Because we're expanding the footprint of the building, it's an unlisted action, and this is the first piece and resolution for passing the seeker. And the environmental assessment form is in the SED, and they will tell us how to proceed in the next 20 or so days.
They don't
actually pass it, we're doing any changes to it, just saying
Send
that
it.
it's okay.
okay, so we'll see this
Next board meeting.
next board meeting,
We'll have
okay.
the proposition
Well, the
on
actual
there.
Okay, the actual.
Then we can discuss it a little bit before we.
So let's do secret first.
Okay. Just making sure
Good question.
everybody's doing their job. Any more on discussion? I'll be quiet now. All those in favor? Opposed? District announcements, future board meetings, all meetings will take place at 6 o'clock. Write that down, Danielle. October 16th at School 16, November 6th at the middle school. And my good news, the only thing that Jason didn't write was that how great the homecoming was.
Yeah.
It was good to see the stands full again. We had a good turnout and everything, and so that was really nice. Saw a lot of some ex-alumni. And, okay, we're excited to host the ribbon cutting celebration for Troy Middle School. Don't Quit Fitness Center on Friday morning at 8:30, which all board members will be invited to. TMS received this $100,000 fitness center at no cost to the district, thanks to the efforts of Principal Assistant Brian Matthews, who applied for the award and who is sitting in our audience. I don't want to pick up.
Brian sent me a couple videos of the kids in there using it,
Oh.
so it's really great.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
If you're around the grand, I mean, they're already starting to use it, but the grand opening is this Friday morning. If you're around, you want to come on.
Good luck. School 12 pre-K hosted Dads Take Your Child to School Day on September 19th. Dads and parents joined their pre-K child enjoying donuts and muffins while reading a new book together to take home. School 14 held its first school-wide morning program of the school year on September 26th. We were happy to welcome many families into the building to participate in morning program. Carroll Hill has established community blocks across the building. Every administrator and staff member participates in community circles with classes. This provides the opportunity to build relationships and a strong building-wide community. That's got pretty good. The Troy High Masterminds team won the CNY Fall Kickoff for the second year in a row on Saturday, 9/28 in Syracuse. This team was represented by Demetrius Flores and Jerry Schaap. That was close, right?
Very close.
With this victory,
Demetrius MVP last year.
I don't want to say so.
Wow.
you gotta tell Jason, yeah, those things. He writes War and Peace every morning for me. With this victory, the team has once again qualified for the high school national championship tournament in Atlanta, which will be held over Memorial Day weekend. Additionally, Demetrius Flores received a special award for being the top individual scorer in the entire tournament field. He's got to be one smart cookie. Boy.
Who's coaching this year?
Adrian Callis, Matt.
Oh, that's right.
Homecoming and Spirit Week was an absolute hit with an amazing amount of positive energy in the building. Dunkin' Donuts joined us on Wednesday during our 3 lunch periods, offering students a small beverage along with a $5 gift card for every student and every staff member. The students carried that energy through the in-school pep rally on Friday, which we kind of saw some videos.
Is that written there?
No. Students ended the week on
There's a
Saturday.
video out there if you want to see Mr. Miko getting whooped by Mr. Stack. Pool noodles, they had a pool noodle fight.
But I loved how Mr. Miko explained that on the field to us Friday night. I could have, I didn't want to hurt him, you know. And I was like, okay. So we just let him go. Didn't want to ruin his 15-minute of fame. Our Saturday with over 400 students at the annual homecoming dance. Wow, big turnout. Troy finished 4th overall at the Colonial Council Golf Championships last week. Joey Degnan led the way with the third lowest score in the tournament. This comes after he was named Times Union Boys Athlete of the Week for September 16th through the 22nd. We could have done a lot more, but it's nap, bedtime. Anything from the board?
And I got something. Sorry, I'm talking a lot tonight, sorry. But I reached out to the board about the article that was in the Times Union in regards to Schenectady and what they're doing for potential gun identification in their schools with the technology and whatnot. So I want to pose it to the board that we accelerate those conversations and try and figure out what options are out there, what options are there for Troy schools, and bring some of those options to the table so we can at least get some reviews, get some budgets in place, and figure out what the next steps are. As difficult of a conversation as it is, it's one more step in the right direction to try and deter or keep our kids safe. So I want to make sure that that conversation doesn't wait, and I don't know what the process is to bring those people in or what that looks like, but whatever I can do to help or whatever we need to do as a board to get those people to the meetings, to start talking about it, I think we need to do for whatever upcoming budgets we have or whatever that looks like. So if Schenectady's doing it, I feel like there's got to be a way we should be able to do the same thing and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, as I wrote an email, we've already started looking at it. Don and I have talked about those systems. There are a few of them out there. They're not cheap, but I don't disagree. They take some installation and all of that. Ultimately, it's up to the board, but typically, I know Schenectady is inviting those people to board meetings and doing all that display. That's not really, in my opinion, how it's done. We'll do that. We'll review all the systems. I'll come back to the board. And I got from your email, if the board wants us to pursue looking at those systems and trying to figure out which one is best. We were only really looking to start at the high school to see how it worked and be in that lobby area of the high school. And then we talked about we're going to get a new secure vestibule at that high school, and so we tie it into that project and do it all at once. Because the new systems, it's almost like we were making an analogy to the new Easy Pass. So you're not going through, like if you come to our football or basketball games, you go through a metal detector. If you go to Mr. Canfield's program, you're going through that. These are not like that. These are just set up so you're just walking in normal, and then the detection happens. So You know, we were thinking of the high school lobby to start with that secure part. It gets very expensive. I'm not sure, I mean, the Schenectady number that was in the paper was almost $1 million. I'm not sure if they're doing every single school or every single doorway or what they're planning on doing. But we'll do the research and we'll, you know, come back to the board. We can do a presentation on which ones we think are right.
Yeah, that's great.
But I think that's, if the board's okay, that's how we would do it.
Well, I mean, just expect a timeline on that, John?
Well, Don's already met with one or two of them. I mean, I could have people come to us and and then come and report to the board on which system we think is best. I mean, he's already emailed me a quote on what he thinks is the best one already. I mean, we've already started that process, so
Okay.
I can share that with you already.
And that one, have they looked at more than one, or just that one?
I think they have.
I mean, I've reported to a couple.
I think there are only a few out there.
There's a couple of different style systems and there's a couple different generations, and I think John's referring to, you know, the most recent generation, I forget the name of it. Evolve. I do know of other schools that have put it in, and I actually was just talking with one last week. So, you know, the initial ones were, you know, a different kind of sensor system that really didn't work as well, as what I'm being told. So we just need more information. I just want to, you know, say because we're doing the lobby, I just want to make sure we don't put something in to rip it back out later. So, you know, it's part of the whole system, and you know, hopefully it's as easy as they say it is. But you know, we have to get more information, I think, for sure. And how many places do you want?
Is this something that we would add to a capital project or to our budget?
Depend on the time.
Correct. You know, and that's one of the questions I did have is that, does that fall under a different aid category of, you know, hardening your entry systems? You don't always get clear-cut answers, so that's one of my outstanding questions.
Well, Schenectady also got $500,000 on a grant for that too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's different funding mechanisms, but, you know, when they say grant, I'm not sure if they're talking about building aid or an actual grant.
Okay.
There are building aid categories outside of a capital project, like we put in new, additional cameras every single year in the state.
Yeah.
That falls under a different category.
Yeah.
So you have to submit it in, and then they look at it and say whether it's approved or not. So I don't want to say
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
but
no.
definitely a possibility.
I mean, I guess the last thing I would ask is anybody reaching out to Schenectady to figure out how they did it and what they did and what they learned?
Yeah, Amsterdam has it. So that's what I was
Okay,
saying
got
last
it.
week.
So Amsterdam already has it in it. Okay.
And so I wanted to pick their brain and get more
Nice.
information from them right away.
All right. Sounds great.
We'll get on it and we'll.
Appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm not gonna pick on anybody in the audience because I noticed 3 people dozed off. I'm only serious. So, motion on the floor to adjourn. All those in favor? Anybody want to talk about adjourning? Good night, everybody, thank you.
Thank you.